Today, we're going to take a look at the plan for the short reading section. Now, the plan is a series of steps that if you follow will make this section much easier. Now, there are many different ways to do the short reading section. And the way I'm going to tell you now is something that I've seen a lot of my students do, and they've been very successful with it. Now, in the very beginning, it might seem a little strange or difficult, but if you keep practicing it, you will get used to it, and it will help you with this section. So don't worry, it takes a little time to get used to it, but in the end, it will help you a lot. All right, let's get started. The first step is read the introductory sentence. Let's take a look. Here we have a short reading, and if you look up here, you can see an introductory sentence. If we read this, we can have an idea of what this reading is and what it's about. Scan the reading. The next step is to scan the short reading passage. And when we scan something, we don't really read every word. What we're doing is very quickly trying to read everything just to get a main idea, just to get an overall idea of what it's about. We don't worry about the details. We want to do this fast. We want to do it quickly. Read the questions and answer choices. The reason that we want to read the questions and the answer choices is very simple. We want to identify the different questions. Is this question a detailed question? Is this question a general question? A not question? A vocabulary question? Because this is going to help us, and this is going to save us a lot of time. So this step is very simple. Read the questions and the answer choices. Identify the questions. So now we read the questions and the answer choices. So what we want to do is identify the different types of questions. In the questions lesson, we talked about all the different types of questions that you will see in the short reading section. We'll see some detailed questions. We'll see some vocabulary questions. We'll see some general and inference questions. We'll see some not questions. What we want to do is identify these. Now, each short reading passage is a little different. So maybe this short reading passage only has detailed questions, or this one has detailed questions, general questions, vocabulary questions, and not questions. Remember, they're all a little different. So if you don't see one type of question, it's okay. Now let's review really quick how we can identify all the different types of questions. Detailed questions. Identifying detailed questions is actually kind of simple. Detailed questions ask for specific information. So questions like, who will go to New York? Or what time does the meeting start? Or how much is a subscription to the magazine? These are all asking for specific information, so we know they are detailed questions. Vocabulary questions. Vocabulary questions are very easy to identify because they'll usually have a word in quotation marks. These are quotation marks. Also, the question will be stated like this. The word in paragraph 2, line 5 is closest in meaning to. If you see those quotation marks or that type of question, you know it's a vocabulary question. General and inference questions. Now, these type questions actually can be a little difficult to identify. They're usually asking about the main idea of the reading passage or maybe a reason for something. Usually, these types of questions have the words probably, imply, or infer in the question. Not questions. These are, again, very easy to identify because you will see the word not, like this, in big capital letters. So we want to do these questions in a certain order. We want to do the easiest questions first and the most difficult questions last. The easiest questions will be the detailed questions. When we see a detailed question, what we should do is look at the question and try to pick out the key words in that question. If we know the key words from the question and sometimes from the answer choices, we know what information to look for in the short reading passage. Usually the keywords will be nouns or verbs in the question. Once we know the keywords, we can scan or quickly read the short reading passage. Then when we find those keywords, we can read the sentences. Once we do that, usually we will know the answer. If we do it this way, we don't have to waste a lot of time reading everything. We can use those keywords, scan it, find the keywords, read that part only, and then answer it. Next, vocabulary questions. Next, what we want to do are the vocabulary questions. When you see a vocabulary question, first find the sentence that the question talks about in the short reading. Usually the question will say, paragraph 3, line 4. Find that sentence and read it. If you feel like you know the answer, if you know the meaning of the word, go ahead and quickly answer it. But if you don't know the answer, there are two things that you can do. The first thing is you can try to use the context of the overall reading to help you understand the meaning. For example, you can read the sentence before the word and after, and try to use that to give you an idea of the context of the reading. If you still don't know the answer, what you should do is quickly eliminate incorrect answer choices and then guess. General and inference questions. Next, we want to do the general and inference questions. We already did the detail questions and we did the vocabulary questions. And from that, we probably have a very good idea of what the topic is for the short reading passage. We have a good idea of the overall meaning of everything. So if you can, try to answer the general and inference questions without going back and reading the short reading passage. Now, if you don't know the answer, then go ahead and while you think about the question, scan the short reading passage. So read it quickly and then try to answer it. Remember, usually for the general and the inference questions, the answer choices will not be stated directly in the short reading passage. They will have the same meaning or similar meaning, but they will be worded differently. So for the detail questions, we can use keywords and the answer choices to search for information in the short reading passage. But with the general and inference questions, we really can't do that. It's much, much more difficult. Not questions. The very last questions we want to do are the not questions. Remember, these questions are asking for information that was not stated in the short reading. Now, we already did the detail questions, the vocabulary questions, the general and inference questions. So I hope that you have a good idea of what the short reading is about. And maybe that can help you with the not questions. So if you know the answer, quickly answer. If you don't know the answer, then go ahead and scan the short reading while you're thinking about the question. Okay?